This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
You know what? We talk about security blankets in this hockey world. My security blanket is when producer Alex said, let's have a good show, guys. That just gets me amped up and fired up. And here we are in the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take, the 420 edition. For those of you who celebrate, congratulations and happy 420 to you and yours. Presented by Botano and Skip, Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with you. Rosie, how are we feeling, buddy? Game 2 tonight, bud.
I should be feeling better. I didn't know it was 420. We should have done a little wake and bake show. That would have been interesting.
Imagine us doing a show just tuned up. That would be awesome. Crazier than it
I'm
already
good though,
is.
buddy. My negativity is behind me. I said what I needed to say, and just like those players in the room, we have moved on, and we are ready and excited for tonight. It needs to be a big one.
I can't believe how many people are still talking about officiating. I go on my timeline. I wake up. I'm on Twitter. Apparently, I'm supposed to lose my verification today. I wake up. I still have the blue check mark for some reason, but that's beside the point. People are still bitching and complaining, and they're writing about who the refs are for tonight's game. We're losing sight of the gonorrhea we saw in the first period in Game 1, dude. Like, I just can't get over this. I know it's so easy to pin everything on the officiating, but how about play better, Rosie?
The Leafs had the drip Game 1. Yeah, they definitely need to come out of the gate blazing. And I mean, they've got, I don't care what the lineup is. I don't care where Kerfoot is. Blah, blah. And what about this? It's just the things that we can do while we're waiting for the game that really doesn't matter. That team needs to come out and they need to do what they do, which is take control of games. Throw the kitchen sink, not give a shit who they're playing or what they're doing, and play their game and empty the tanks right all over that team. And they have proven over many, many, many games that they can be dominant and effective while doing that. They did not do that Game 1. They sat back on their heels and watched and looked around at each other and jittered and stick to the outside. And hopefully I score this goal from the top of the circles because it's all I have gotten all period long. It's just, it was no good. And you can't play like that. And they have continually proven in the playoffs, if you're going to play well and win games and beat teams, you have to take control. It's exactly what they have to do tonight.
To quote a wise man, somebody fucking do something. With that in mind, remember to subscribe, tap that like button, leave us a review. We need that on a t-shirt one day, by the way. But wherever you're checking us out, at the Leafs Nation 401, if you're watching this right now and are new to the channel, please subscribe at the Leafs Nation 401. Just tap that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Additionally, we're available wherever you can find your podcasts. Also, don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest in all things Toronto Maple Leafs. If you have thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns, we also do have a segment designed for you coming up in about 20 from now. So make sure to jot everything down. Tell us how you feel about Game 2 coming up tonight between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Also coming up in a few minutes, Mike Kelly from NHL Network and Sportlogiq to break down what he's seen so far, plus look ahead to Game 2. But for now, let's get over the boards. All right, we'll start with a 3-game suspension to Michael Bunting. After that, we'll get into the lineup news and notes. First and foremost, what did you make? Did they give him enough here?
Oh, they certainly gave him enough. I mean, I was thinking it would be 2. I think they just did. They did 3. I mean, it is what it is. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what they're going to do. And bottom line is, in the NHL, you unnecessarily target a guy's head that has nothing to do with a hockey play. I mean, if that guy's coming down the boards and Bunting hits him and catches his head, maybe it's a one-gamer, but it was just unnecessary. And it was, I don't know, it wasn't that freaking dangerous. But you just can't whack a guy's head like that. And you're going to pay, and his reputation probably preceded him while looking at, you know, what the repercussions of that play were going to be. And that's just what the position he's put himself in. So I don't know. You don't have him for 3 games and you accept that. There's nothing else you can do. I cannot imagine they're going to appeal it.
No, I guess for me, it's the standard, right? Like what is or what isn't. If you want to multiply the playoff game suspensions by 2, is that worthy of a 6-game suspe in the regular season? I'm not sure about that. I felt they'd probably go with 2 games. Never in my head did I think about 2+, yet here we are, a 3-game suspension. And Bunting's not eligible to return, by the way, until Game 5. But I think you're so bang on. The reputation, whether it's something that should be taken into account or not, the reputation. Rosie, this has been brewing all season long, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I mean, it just comes down to you can play however you want. You just like look at the other guys that want to play that style of Brad Marchand or, we talked about Corey Perry yesterday. They can play on that edge and be the agitator, and they still have the respect of the officials. But when you're constantly like, how many times is he pulling his mouth guard out of his mouth and just screaming at the refs? F this and F that, you can tell. And what the F is, and just screaming at the refs. Like, you will buy yourself nothing out of that. And I mean, he was told, was he not? Whether this year or last, just stop yelling at the refs. Quit diving. Like, just stop. You're trying to embarrass the refs. They hate that. They hate that. And then you have a target on your back, whether you have the greatest ref in the world, who's the most impartial ref in the world, you still subconsciously, as a human, have a target on your back when you get screamed at as a referee by a guy constantly trying to embarrass you by diving and then screaming in your face. You're just going to have that subconscious target on your back no matter what. And I think it finally caught up to him here today.
Sadly, it was well-deserved as well. I hate to say that, but I think the Leafs players are saying the right thing. Sheldon Keefe as well. Nobody really wants to talk about it. By the way, Bunting won't be made available to the media until his suspension is done in anticipation of Game 5. But it is what it is at this point. I do think it is well-deserved. Game 2 tonight, Rosie. I think you're so bang on with your assessment off the top of the show. Park it. You move forward. I know the market's been dwelling on this for the past 48 hours or so, but it sounds like Matthew Nyes will be in for Michael Bunting. Was that the right move?
100%. Yeah, he should have been in game 1, in my opinion. I think he would have, he's not going to be a difference maker, but I think he would have been nice to have a guy that, doesn't get caught up in the woes of the Leafs playoff, whatever it is that is, just a kid that's not really involved in it and is just going to go empty the tank out there and, maybe have a couple of shifts down low where you're cycling the puck, maybe you keep the puck, strip Victor Hedman of the puck, and, you get that little juice, little momentum shift, and he can kind of do it all. He can work hard. He can be a power forward. He can get it low. He can set up plays and he can finish plays. And I just think that he's got value and he needs to be in this lineup just because he's available to us. I really believe he's that good, and I know he's young, but it showed there in game 1. Go through the lineup and look at the Kerfoots and the Czars, and like, are you telling me Matthew Nyes can't play above what they did out there? He should be in the lineup. I'm glad to see him. I think he will have some kind of an impact. I think absolutely everyone on that roster is going to make that team look like a different team tonight, or they're going to be in some trouble. So look for them to have a huge start.
Again, we won't get confirmation for the lineup or to the lineup until, the pregame 30 minutes for the game. But this is just based off what we saw at practice. These are the lines you see courtesy Luke Fox of Sportsnet and sportsnet.ca. Yarncroke, Matthews, Marner, Kerfoot, Tavares, Nylander, Nyes, O'Reilly, Acciari. I like the fact that you're spreading the wealth a bit, taking nothing away from loading the top 6. But from a matchup point of view, again, we should note that Victor Hedman is considered a game-time decision. They've already ruled out Mikey Esimont, who played in the third line, as well as Eric Chernak, who's been a pivotal factor and played a big-time role the last couple of seasons for Tampa. So I think spreading the wealth is going to cause chaos, you would think, in theory, matchup-wise for Tampa, no?
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, if they got some of their big pieces out, and you can spread your pieces out so that they physically can't get their best guys on the ice when you have power out there. I mean, that's really nice. I mean, we've talked about O'Reilly being in the bottom 6, and I mean, I love him and Nyes together. I think they can get stuff done, and then Acciari can be out there too. And I mean, they can be defensively responsible. They can be an energy line. They can score goals. I think they could take over a game by just relentlessly getting in the ozone and causing havoc, especially if Hedman and these types are out. So it looks good, looks nice. I think that, we'll see if Kerfoot can spark something playing with Tavares and Nylander. I don't particular notice him in game 1 by any stretch, but that goes for most of the roster. So obviously Hole didn't get pulled out as we expected. I just I don't know, in a league like the NHL where it is cutthroat and it is perform or die, and it's what have you done for me lately? And to have a game like that and have a guy like Liljegren sitting there waiting to available to be used, and they continue play Hull, and he's probably going to play up around that 18 minutes tonight. It's shocking, but again, you got to park that and your opinion on that, and hopefully that he steps up, because Hull was good down the stretch. Like, to finish off the regular season, he was pretty solid. He wasn't making those mistakes. He wasn't out of position, and he didn't play physical or anything, but he was playing pretty solid defensive defenseman where you almost didn't notice him, which is a good thing, because a player like him, if you do notice him, it's probably because he's making major mistakes out there. So hopefully, he has a reset button pressed, and he's ready to clean it up and have a big game here with Gio tonight. And it's not my favorite six in the back end, but I'd have Liljegren in there instead, but it's not my team to make that call. And otherwise, I think those guys are ready to hit the reset button.
Yeah, to borrow a quote from the lockout I covered a couple of years back, now it's the hill they're willing to die on. Like, again, we're past the point where we're trying to break down why Justin Hull is in the lineup, especially after what we saw in game one. Like, he was downright atrocious. And you have Timothy Liljegren, who has been a bigger piece to this puzzle than many think the last couple of years. And to put him in the press box again suggests they're giving everybody pretty much a mulligan game. But you're right. You lose game 2 tonight, you are in big time trouble. And rest assured, there will be some changes for game 3.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I don't know. Someone was mad at me at Twitter for riding Hull a little bit. It almost seemed like it was like a family member or something. It really seemed that way. Like they had no leg to stand on, but they were just mad that I was doing it. So I left it alone, because I'm like, it's probably his auntie or something like that, pissed off to hear that. But it's kind of funny that like that was the talk of the town after game 1, for the most part, as far as lineup decisions in the back end, and why the media just doesn't go to Sheldon Keefe like with a game like that. I mean, just show the highlights, or just show how many goals he was on the ice for, and be like, is your allegiance just completely on Justin Hull? Like, is there no chance this guy comes out in your mind, or have you just made your bed with him, or is there any way that you get Liljegren in? And I'd just love to hear what Keefe says, because it is so head scratching that he is just absolutely glued to the lineup, even though he can have those big step ups. But again, I digress. It is tonight that we're focused on, and we want to go in the positive and put the throttle down and even the series up, just like the Oilers did.
I like that, and that's a good point to make. Brought to you by our new friends over at Skip. We're happy to tell you about Mitch's Dishes by Skip using the promo code TLN15. That's TLN15 on the Skip the Dishes app. You'll get $15 off when you spend $30 or more on Mitch's Dishes. Please note this offer is exclusive to Skip. Additionally, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to the Marner Assist Fund to combat food insecurity. Skip is currently serving up game time eats across the GTA and Ontario in the likes of Brampton, Guelph, Kitchener, Toronto, Oshawa, and Waterloo, among other places. If Mitch likes it, it's got to be great.
Did somebody say Skip?
Nice.
I nailed it, Rosie. I nailed it, dude. I've been prepping for 24 hours to hit that post, and I hit it. And thanks so much to our friends over at Skip. As we bring in today's guest from the NHL Network and Sportlogiq, it is Mike Kelly. What's happening, Mike? How are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're still picking up the pieces. We're doing well. We're picking up the pieces from game 1. I guess we can start there, Mike. What went through your head as you watched that game unfold the other night?
That Toronto is living up to its reputation, and so is Tampa Bay. That's kind of what it was, right? Like this is the first time in 6 years I've picked Toronto to win their first round series. I haven't loved the way they've filled out their roster for the playoffs in years past, and I thought there was enough separation this year. I think there is still between what the Leafs are and where Tampa Bay's at. And look, they come out and have a great game too, and even this series, everyone's swung the other way again, right? So it's not a huge deal, but I couldn't believe, I shouldn't say I couldn't believe, I was surprised that the Maple Leafs looked as terrified as they did of the moment. And they looked nervous and hesitant. And then, I think right off the bat, like Toronto can be guilty sometimes of overthinking things and thinking, we're just going to do what we need to do or what we think we need to do, and we'll win regardless of what else happens. And I go to that line change, the Tavares, Nylander, O'Reilly line starts, and then the Matthews line jumps on for 5 seconds. There's a D-zone draw. Fourth line comes out for Tampa, so Sheldon Keefe goes to his fourth line. Like you'd think maybe leave Matthews' line on there, let them have a favorable matchup, get into the rhythm of the game. And then there's your first goal of the game on an Aston Reese turnover, and away it goes. So that was about as bad as it gets for Toronto in that game, for sure.
Mike, what do you see? Like you say, you've never picked them before, and this is a team where the roster, it looks as well rounded as it has before, and we know what the Toronto market is. The sky was absolutely falling yesterday, and tomorrow it could be back on the parade train. Obviously, everything's amplified in that market, but break that game down. Like, how bad was that? There was no shining moments top to bottom. And what do you think with a roster that's capable of doing what they did for 82 games? I mean, you can go back to 2013 or this or that and their playoff woes. It's not even the same group of people. What is it about that, wearing that sweater and not being able to get it done in the playoffs? Is it the market? Like, how do you have that bad of a game with that good of a team when it matters the most?
Well, they're cursed, clearly, right? So you got to overcome that. There has to be something to it. The pressure, the market, the ghosts of years past. Like, you can't ignore that when you watch them come out and play that first period the way they did. It has to be a real thing. It was a little surprising. Like, I didn't expect it, but that's what it is. And there's got to be a lot of weight there. Like, I think Toronto, if all things are equal, if they started on the road, that would have been way better for them than starting at home in this series, where all the pressure, oddly enough, is not on the team that's won a couple cups and went to a final last year. It's on the team that hasn't won anything in almost 20 years. So it's a strange dynamic and situation for sure. And again, they've got the players capable of doing it. They came back in the game. They got it close for a second, and then it all went south again. So I know there's Leaf fans that are on the refs, and there were 4 power play goals for Tampa. Tampa also outscored Toronto at even strength. So it wasn't what decided the game by any means. But, Michael Bunting's a guy who's a passionate player and grew up in the area. Obviously, wearing that sweater means a lot to him. He got a little overexcited and made a bad play. Now he's gone. So we'll see what happens in game 2. But I just, the thing that would concern me is the things that have hurt this team in the past were all there in game 1. Just tight sticks, nervous, little chip outlet plays that end up going right back down your throat again, where it's like you don't always have to make that possession play into the middle of the ice. Smack it off the board sometimes. Just get it out. Couple of those. So we'll see. We'll see if what they've learned going into game 2.
It's funny, Mike, like for the better part of the last month, pretty much since the trade deadline, we've been talking ad nauseum how Sheldon Keefe has been jumbling his lines up like crazy. Well, here's a chance for that to benefit, right? You lose Bunting, Matthew Nyes comes in, looks like he's going to play with Ryan O'Reilly and Nola Chari on the third line, if you want to call it that. You think spreading the wealth is the way to go for the Maple Leafs, specifically against a team like Tampa, knowing some of the injuries that team has right now too?
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think after game 1, it's absolutely the right call. Just again, like how much the bottom 6 won for Tampa against Toronto's, especially the fourth line for Tampa Bay. When that line with Perry on it, who had 3 points in the game, was up against Toronto's bottom 6, it's only a handful of minutes, and they outshot them 5-1 from the slot. They scored a goal. That was decisive in that game. The big, take the power play away where all the stars play, but at even strength, the bigs for Tampa Bay wasn't necessarily what decided the game. It was down in the lineup as well. So I think you have to have O'Reilly after that game in the 3-hole so you can balance things out a little bit. And, I heard you guys talking as well about Justin Hall and his struggles. Luke Schenn didn't have a great game either. Timothy Liljegren sitting there. Like, how do you solve all of that? I think you could do it in one fell swoop, which is to do what Edmonton did last night. Go 11-7. And, that way you can get Liljegren in, move him around as you see fit in optimal situations, take some minutes away from the other guys who struggled a little bit in game 1, and look no further than Edmonton's first goal in the game last night, where it's Draisaitl double shifting with a couple of guys down in the lineup, with Derek Ryan scoring the goal. You can do that with Toronto's big guys too and get those favorable matchups. So I like O'Reilly in the 3 spot. I thought maybe they'd really consider going 11-7, which I think would help solve even a few more problems for the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I thought that was an option too. And same thing, watching that Oilers game, it was like, wow, look at this. You got those big boys, and it just allows them to keep the four lines rolling, but keeping your big stars out on the ice and giving them more opportunity to do exactly what Draisaitl did last night. Moving on, like between the pipes with Samsonov, I mean, to play as well as he has, I mean, everyone's talking about, Vasilevsky versus him, and his numbers were better this year, and he's been put in pressure spots, and he's been tested, and it's not like it was just a fly by night thing that he had a season. He showed that he can play, and he's poised, and he just looked completely out of sorts, albeit he didn't have much help in front of him. What's your level of concern between the pipes here tonight?
Hey, a little higher than game one, where I really didn't have much at all. His playoff record isn't great. And his regular season, to your point, Jay, it was awesome. His numbers were right there with Vasilevsky. So we know Vasilevsky dials it up a notch in the playoffs. And I don't think, and for me, like, it wasn't even about Samsonov having to be better, because I don't think the games by and large are going to be even or tilted in Tampa's favor. I think Toronto in most games, as they did at even strength, even though the score didn't show it, the way the game was played, it favored Toronto. They're going to get more chances. They're going to get better looks, certainly at even strength. So he doesn't have to be better. He just has to be better than he was, for sure. So I look, even if all things were equal, Matt Murray's healthy, they've got their two top guys ready to go, I'd still go back to Samsonov, because I would have that belief in him. Now, if it doesn't go well again, now you're in big trouble, because you don't have Matt Murray. And that was something that people talked about at the trade deadline. And I know some analysts were adamant about, go get another guy, because we don't know if we can count on Matt Murray to be healthy. And Samsonov, as good as he's been, hasn't proven it in the playoffs. What happens if one guy, Samsonov, isn't going well enough and you don't have the other guy? And, either they didn't do it, obviously, and with the cap and bringing guys in, who knows if they even could have. They're masters of the salary cap, but didn't happen. So I think he'll be better. I'm a believer in the guy, but he kind of, to me, wore a little bit what the Leafs team did in general, which is they looked like they weren't up for the size of that moment when the game started.
Yeah, they look like a team that the switch flipped, and it's like, oh shit, it's a Stanley Cup playoffs. Here we go, and they got all jittery. You got like a billion guys. Yeah, no, that's a story too. You're right.
Yeah. And I thought the Leafs had a really good opportunity, because, somewhat early in the game, Cernak and Hedman are both gone. And I thought they were thin on defense to begin with. Like, that leaves Sergachev as like a great defenseman, but they're only one, really. So there was opportunity. There'll be opportunity there tonight if Hedman can't go, especially. I mean, if there's no Hedman and no Cernak, and they don't come out on top in this game, like, that would be tough to imagine. And then you got to win 4 out of 5 with a lot of games left in Tampa Bay.
I don't even want to imagine it. So, Mike, we'll leave it at that. Appreciate your time, man. Keep up the fantastic work, bud.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
anytime.
Mike.
That's Mike Kelly from the NHL Network and Sportlogiq. Always brings it, does great stuff. And we actually get the feed now in Canada of NHL Network, at least Jackie Redmond show, 4 to 6, I think, Eastern time, sort of like a preview to the night's action in the NHL. But they do a bang up job. I do some work as well with the NHL, and Mike's on this stuff. So I'm happy to hear he's finally picked the Leafs to win this series. I don't feel any different about this series than I did, 72 hours ago over the weekend before game one. I think Toronto's going to bounce back. I just got that feel tonight, Rosie.
Yeah, I do too. I think they're going to show their colors and they're going to tie this up. And I still believe that they're going to win this series. And we'll look back at game one and say, remember that hiccup, because that's exactly what it was.
Big fucking hiccup. Yeah.
It was a big hiccup, all right. But like we said, it doesn't matter if you win, 3-2 in overtime, or if you kind of get blown out. And, there's a lot of factors going into that loss. It all started where it's completely on their plate and completely their fault, and they need to take responsibility. I think they have, but they came out with that start and set the table for what came down the barrel. Was it as devastating as it looks? I don't think so. I think they can turn that ship around tonight, and I expect them to do so.
Okay, let's get to the Betano wrap-up presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19+. Please play responsibly. And echoing what we just said, We like a response for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. I think if you're looking to extract some value, it's probably not in the money line. So I would look to the Leafs in regulation. You see on your screen right there, -108, courtesy Betano.ca. That's where I would look. I should also mention that last night at the Oilers in regulation, I expect a bounce back. There's no other way around the fact that the Leafs were thoroughly embarrassed. It was panic mode in game one. I want to see that team that we've been so accustomed to seeing bits and pieces throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs and more specifically in the regular season. And on top of that, there's some notable injuries on that back end for Tampa. I don't know if Hedman's going to go, but losing Chernak is huge. They don't have that depth they once did. I believe Zach Bogosian, former Toronto Maple Leaf, would spell into the lineup in favor of a guy like Chernak. I don't even know who would replace Hedman, and who knows what that lineup could look like for Tampa. It sounds like Tanner Jeannot could make his series debut as well, but bottom line, they have to capitalize on this massive, massive opportunity. And Rosie, I think they will.
Yeah, they got to play their game and penetrate, and I mean they're gonna, all the more reason to go after them if they're a little bit bleak on the back end there. But you're gonna have to play your game. You got to focus less on what they're doing and do your thing. It seemed like, when the Leafs get in trouble, and they hardly showed it this year. You got to go back to like October when they're struggling and they can't get it done. They're defensively irresponsible. And then on the offense, they just keep it to the perimeter. It's one guy against two all the time. They never come with numbers. They never come with speed, and they hang out on the outside, and, they're taking shots from outside of that box that just isn't going to get it down in the NHL. And they need to get away from that, penetrate that net front, come with numbers, come with speed. If you don't have anything, chip it deep with support and just get all over them and try to expose their back end, especially if their numbers are bleak. So I imagine that'll be the game plan tonight. They need to come out to a hot start and just put this goddamn series back on the rails.
So TML writes in, is Hull in? To the best of our knowledge, and again, things can change from what we saw at practice, and we don't know much from the morning skates, especially on playoff game days, but they were practicing with Hall in there. Liljegren was not in there. So we're assuming he's in. Robert Cairns writes in, nice scores to win the game, man. I'm just jacked. We liked what we saw from Matthew Nyes in 3 games, and now the proof will be in the pudding. And the best thing about this is, like, this has been the trump card for all Leafs fans. Matthew Nyes. He needs to play in a playoff game. Well, here you fucking go. Matthew Nyes is going to play in a playoff game, and we'll see if this guy's the real deal. I'm not being an asshole about it, but it's also one of those things that people wanted this kid to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we're going to get a chance to see him play now. I like it.
Yeah, and good. I mean, you got to keep expectations. Yeah. Is he going to be a savior? No, but is he going to be better than the alternative? I think he should have been there in front of, some of those guys on that bottom third line, fourth line. He should play in front of them. And is he going to beat the world tonight? I don't know. Probably not. But is he going to be effective? And is there an upside to having him in the lineup? Absolutely.
I agree. And the combination in a brief time with Ryan O'Reilly, man, the factor, like if I had to pick one guy who I thought was okay in the first game, it was probably Ryan O'Reilly. He's been there before, scores a goal, but collectively, everybody up and down that roster needs to be better. A lot of hatred again for Justin Hull. Again, we're past that conversation. We've had it so much this season. I'm just fatigued by it. Frank writes in, Draisaitl was a beast last night. I want to see a beast. You know who I want to see be a beast tonight, I should say? Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Nylander, Tavares. One of my buddies got pissed because I'm like, oh, look at these guys picking up garbage time points in the third period. I'm not letting the numbers deceive me. I know Marner had 3 apples in game 1. I know Matthews had 2 assists, but not even close to good enough for guys who think they're legitimately some of the best players on the planet. And this is collective for the core 4 and all the big players. Up and down that lineup, Rose, they need it tonight. They need to bring it. I need to see Matthews. I need to see Nylander as well. I thought he was a ghost. Like, all these guys who are the bread makers for this team, they didn't show up, in my opinion, in game 1.
Yeah, and it's almost like they're trying too hard, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's the playoffs. I got to do X, Y, Z, and it doesn't happen. You got to let your abilities go, and you got to have confidence in yourself. They're good enough players, every single one of them, to make a difference in a playoff game. You just got to get out there, let that happen, and you got to penetrate those tough spots. You got to expose them. You got to have confidence. Be cocky, for God's sakes. Do what you need to do to put yourself in a position to expose their team. You are the better team. Austin Matthews, you're the best player on the ice. Go out there with swagger, just get it done, man. Stop overthinking, stop gripping your stick, and just get it done. Do your thing, be loose, go hard, empty the tank, do what you do. You have to take control of this game, and you're not going to do it by squeezing your stick and doing anything out of the ordinary. Do what you've been doing all season long, and together that core four is good enough to put points on that board and solve Vasilevsky.
Well, Rosie, this is the last time I guess we'll talk face-to-face until Tuesday, and that'll be the aftermath of Game 4 of this series. But you'll be coming back with us tomorrow and Monday with, I'm sure, 2 spanking editions of 3 Hits with Rosie. So we'll talk then, and hopefully it's a 3-1 series lead in favor of the Maple Leafs next time we speak face-to-face.
I hope it's a joyous 3 Hits with Rosie with nothing but smiles and sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. That is what I'm looking for, or else it could be a dark, dark segment. But time will tell, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, you have to play up to the role if that's the case. We're all black, deliver the eulogy with passion and pride. And yeah, it's a learning lesson. That was my favorite John Tavares quote of the last 48 hours. I'm tired of fucking learning, man. How many years of learning is this going to be? Like, it's time to put up or shut up. We're at a point where these guys are in the media. They have no clue what to say anymore because they've exercised every cliche possible to say, we're going to be better. We're a different team. Go out there and fucking prove it. And we'll leave it at that, Rosie. Great stuff. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Many thanks to producer Alex. Great job as per usual. Mike Kelly from NHL Network and Sportlogiq for dropping by, as well as everybody in the chat. You were fantastic. And let's bring it for Game 2 tonight. Don't forget to join me tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Take care. See ya. Happy 420, by the way, Rosie.
Tonight's the night!